I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's been a little while since we've seen each other in quarantine, but hey, whatever. This is really cool too, Mara. So for those of us, not those, for those out there who maybe don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, where you're coming from with regards to the creative world, acting, etc., and everything else about your life.
Sure. Um, I most of my life is spent being the owner of a company. I own a wellness company where we complementary and alternative medicine, massage, acupuncture, chiropractic, that kind of stuff. But I've always been a performer my whole life. School, plays, et cetera, et cetera. I'm also a dancer and a dance teacher. I perform improv comedy at a local theater, Unscrewed Theater. Been doing that for, I think, close to 6 years now. I've done some traditional theater here in Tucson as well. I have a corporate background and a business background, but I have this creative bend as well. I've dabbled a little bit in writing. So kind of a little bit of everything to make sure that my life feels balanced.
That's pretty awesome. So let's first talk about let's talk about the big one, COVID-19, and how it's affected your life with regards to theater. First off, shout out to Unscrewed because I went there about 9 months ago. Had a blast.
Oh, good. Yay.
I had nothing but a blast, and David Gunther, is that his name?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, David Gunther. Yeah. So he was there. He worked his magic with everyone else. That was just a blast to see. So I when COVID-19 is past us, I do want to go back. But so let's talk about basically, how COVID-19 has affected your acting life, definitely your business life, and as it pertains to your industry. So how has it affected?
Well, from the acting perspective, with Unscrewed Theater, we're completely dark right now. It was a tough decision to do so. Of course, the mayor and the governor and CDC said no groups over 50 and then no groups over 10. And so we shut down because it just didn't make sense, obviously, to put anybody at risk. So that's sad. We're all missing it. So we're trying to have like virtual improv just with ourselves over in Facebook, playing games. And the executive director, so the Unscrewed Theater is a nonprofit community theater, right? So it's a 501c3. So the executive director and the individual teams that play in the theater are definitely working tirelessly to figure out how to bring improv to live streaming and online versions. So the downside is we're dark. The upside, with practically every artist that I know, no matter the medium, is necessity is the mother of invention, right? So everybody is trying to figure out how to still do their art, how to bring it forward, and how to capture this time in a way that still is fulfilling to them from a pure business perspective, keeps us in front of an audience, but also bring some joy and laughter in a very difficult situation.
What and so let's talk about, ironically enough, about improvising, improvising with the situation, because I'm seeing in the creative community a lot of filmmaker groups, for example, that I belong to. There's a lot of creativity flowing right now with regards to the tools that are there for us to harness. In this case, you and I are talking over Zoom. Other people are obviously using Facebook. And so it's not like we have to go into this creative slump. It's just we have to change the medium, right? And still keep those creative juices flowing, from what I'm seeing, correct?
Absolutely. Well, a true artist and performer, nothing stops them. It's kind of like the mail delivery.
Yeah.
Heat or snow or rain, the mail will be delivered. Well, it's the same thing here. If you have a need to perform or to make art or whatever, you are inspired by all the positive and the negative in the world. I mean, throughout history, artists and musicians and actors have been reflecting real life through their mediums. Yeah. So it's just no different now. It's just that now we have technology that we didn't have before, but the drive is still there, you know, and kind of like we were talking about before we started, and that is for those of us that have day jobs, you know, some of us have more time on our hands, and some of us don't, because we're dealing with the real world stuff so much that we don't have time. And so we have this like push pull and frustration that we're not able to do more in terms of the creative outlet, which is our work-life balance normally. So there's that side of it as well. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, no, it definitely did. And to your point, I do believe that Unscrewed and many other organizations are going to be able to find the digital infrastructure to still do your thing and, you know, maybe monetize in some way, shape, or form. I mean, you know, there's Patreon, for example. We've all heard of Patreon, right? So there's things like that. There's also Facebook also has a thing where you can accept tips. Let me give you an example.
Wow, I didn't know about that. Huh.
Yeah, they I don't know exactly how it works. I've not really touched the feature, but it's there. A contact of mine on Facebook, I don't see him too often. He's a musician. He's a rock. He's in a band in the Phoenix area, playing in his garage on Saturday night, like really late at night, probably 11ish, and it's literally him, and he was sitting on a chair, and his you know, you could see like the garage behind him, but it said something that caught my eye in the description. It said, "I hope you all are having, you know, staying safe and healthy. Enjoy the music. Tips are appreciated." And he had a link. I don't know if that link was to the Facebook tip function, or if it led to something externally. But the point is, he was taking tips. So this guy's, he's playing his guitar on freaking Facebook, and he's taking tips. Another buddy of mine, not so much with the tips, but still definitely on Facebook and the guitar. A buddy of mine who's actually in one of the harder epicenters in Spain, he's in Barcelona. He was playing his guitar, and I had known for the longest time that he was a musician, but here's the beautiful thing that came out of this, at least with regards to him. I heard him play and I heard him sing. And so my wife and I were there back in October, and he did not play or sing for us, even after 13 years of not seeing him. And then all of a sudden, just yesterday, for the first, and I've known this guy since high school, for the first time, I'm hearing him play and sing, and he was amazing. And so those are just two examples of, you know, if we do go long term, as we've recently heard, I think yesterday from the White House, that this is now extended to the stay-at-home order, or I don't know what we're calling it, but basically not going social distancing has been extended to April 30th. And so if this goes beyond that, you know, we got to do what we got to do from a health perspective. But I also think that if it goes into the super long term of, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more months, whatever it may be, I do believe that we as creatives will find a way to do our thing and still monetize, still communicate, still create community, still reach out. It's just looking different, that's all. But, you know.
Absolutely. Well, and yeah, there's a lot of different, you know, so again, my day job is a wellness center. And so, you know, we're really all over the place, trying to help people. You know, do we stay open? Do we close? Who do we see? Who do we not see? How do we keep everybody safe? Because at times like this, people really need us. They need us. So we are legally allowed to practice still, because we're considered to be essential services. But we've chosen to only be available for people who are in an urgent situation, you know, people who are to some degree in crisis, where, and, you know, if you're in crisis because you're really having an emotional breakdown from the stress, we're not sending you to the ER or an urgent care, where you can encounter this virus more rapidly than you would in our very pristinely cleaned little center, you know. but the need for connection, the need to be able to still have access to services is so essential, is where I was going with that. People, we are a social species. We are a social species. We are not meant to be isolated. But by the same token, right now, survival of the fittest, you're smart if you isolate, right?
Yeah.
You need to be able to do that. Gosh, I hope it doesn't go 6 months, but certainly from the people that I know who are in China or abroad or whatever, they're like, you need to plan for 3 or 4 months. And so for us, it's really, is it 3 or 4 months from January? Is it 3 or 4 months from February? Like where's the starting line,
Yeah.
But yes, the creatives will go on. I mean, everybody will go on. Everybody will go on. And monetizing is also, I mean, it's great that people are looking for other ways to be able to do that. I support it entirely. The kindness that people have been exhibiting, people who are donating to the theater, people who are choosing to support local businesses and still order takeout food, and showing up for these Facebook Live events or these other events. It's great that so many people care enough to maintain that community, but they also know it's their lifeline.
What does that say when people care enough to still be present, although digitally, now that we've moved online now more than ever, but still people care to be present? What does that say about those people, Mara?
It says that they honor their nature in being a social being. I don't want to make anybody right or wrong, because everybody does what they need to do to survive, right? And for better or worse. But what it says that those people certainly are demonstrating that they're okay with having an outward expression of their emotions, to show their face, if you will, to others. And so by doing that, the recipient of that feels honored and recognized.
Yeah.
And that feels really good to that other person as a general rule, and certainly to a performer. Most of us thrive on that live audience response. A musician, the musicians play for the dancers. I'm a dancer. I dance for and with the musicians. I'm part of the orchestra or part of the band because I'm responding to the rhythm and the different instruments. So it's an interdependent relationship. It's an ecosystem of its own form, of a sort. So the people who choose to not express in that way have something else going on for them, and that's okay. They're in their process. But it's just harder for us to know what that is because it's not being shown. It's not public.
Yeah. Well, I think when people still show up to support, even now online and digitally, so to speak, I think it shows that they're where their heart still is, who they really still are, and despite the technological adaptation. And so to me, that's inspiring when people will still, like, it's inspiring that yourself and a few other people who, I put out that post and you guys came forward and said, like, I've got something to share. And my whole thing is, cool, let's talk about it. That's inspiring to me when people still show up and say, raise their hand and say, I'll say something. I've got something to say. Or in the case of people who show up online, support. And so I respect that so much. Mara, what do you say to the people, to the creatives out there who are maybe feeling anxiety? I know a lot of creatives are introverts. Maybe we're not all extroverts, but to the ones that are introverts, maybe who have things like anxiety, or maybe are susceptible to depression, things like that. And, and all of a sudden, the community aspect, the connection aspect in the physical world was taken away and everyone's at home now. What do you say to those people who might be having a little bit harder of a time than others in the creative world,
right?
Coping with this? What do you say?
Well, first of all, I'm going to just tease you a little bit because you obviously haven't seen those memes on Facebook about the introverts trying to console the extroverts, because the introverts are like, hey, we got this. We're good at home. You know, it's the extroverts who are suffering, right? It's the people,
Yeah.
right? Because an introvert, you know, theoretically, you know, this is very armchair psychology, of course, so
Yeah.
forgive me. But, you know, the introverts are the ones who are nurtured and nourished by their alone time and their time away from people, right?
True.
And it's true, though, a lot of performers and other people are introverts, and then they have this interesting thing about going out and performing. So the extroverts are actually the ones that are kind of suffering, because they're the ones who are nourished by that social connection out with other humans face to face. But regardless, introvert or extrovert, everybody, you know, or anybody, I should say, can be susceptible to that anxiety, to the depression, to just having their world turned upside down, to, you know, fearing for their life, fearing for their loved ones. There's a lot of scary, scary stuff out there. And that's where, you know, there's so many stories to tell. This is what I was alluding to, was, you know, if I'm a writer who doesn't really ever write, you know, but I have all these ideas of things that should be written if only I would take the time to write. You can look at this problem from science. You can look at this problem from just pure logistics of how do we live? What do we need to do? How do we actually survive? You can look at this perspective from a spiritual growth perspective, you know, and what do we really need to learn? You could also be, you know, looking at it from a political and angst and activist and a soapbox, you know, like there's all different perspectives that one can take. So what I tell to answer your question directly about people who are suffering emotionally is that it's good to look at those emotions, because to not try to deny them on some level. Obviously, if someone is feeling suicidal or scared, they need to call a suicide hotline. They need to connect with a friend, right? Talking about for the average person who's like having a bad day, you know, or a bad couple of days where they're feeling sad and they're worried about money and they're worried about all those things. It's important to examine those feelings, because those feelings are telling you something. And the more, you know, the more we try to control and operate from a place of strong ego, like we can somehow or another control Mother Nature or control our own death and our own destiny and those sorts of things, the more resistance we create, and the more resistance we create, the more painful the learning experience, right? So, so take a page out of all of the ancient philosophies, the Eastern philosophies, the Native American philosophies, about our existence and how we have to just learn how to be and go with the flow in a way, and how to find our daily routine and our solace and strength within ourselves.